encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as the public body makes provisions through the adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting of the Hopkinton Conservation Commission will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom video conference as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Additionally, the meeting may also, or actually will also, be broadcast by HCAM through one of its many channels or platforms. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials for this meeting have been provided to members of this body, are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will invite board members to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. And please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name and your address before speaking. If members wish to engage with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment,
Try the chat box.
after the members of the commission have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and address only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be by roll call vote. I'll call on each member of the commission, at which time you state your name and your vote. Okay.
See if I can get a raise hand function.
So let me just, I gotta bring a few more people into the meeting here.
Okay, sound good. Now we know how to do it.
Hey, Anna, Carrie's coming in now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so at this point in time, we are going to hear the Lake Maspinock continuation of the notice of
I
intent.
stay in my room.
And
my
at this
office,
time, I
you
will
know,
hand it over
and-
to Miss Ricos, who will take over the chair.
Jeff.
Okay,
Can
go
I
ahead,
just-
Melissa.
Thanks, Jeff. You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If I can just remind everyone to please mute if you are not speaking. There's also the wave the hand feature if you would like to speak to get our attention. All right. So at this time, I think I'd like to see if we have Cynthia Estheimer, who's leading the Weed Lake Maspinock group. And I don't know if DPW is on the line. Did you see them come in?
I have not seen him, Melissa, no.
Well,
Okay.
Dave Mitchell is here, and I'm the representative for the DPW.
Okay, Dave Mitchell's here. I was gonna see if someone from that group wanted to just give an update, if there's any new information that has come in since our last meeting that you wanted to share, anything, that we haven't heard yet.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate that.
Madam Chairman. I think, since this meeting originally, I think the first one was in February, and it has been a while. I have some new information, but I'm going to very briefly just go over it within 2 minutes, what steps have been done. If you recall, the initial notice of intent for aquatic plant management was filed in February, and it was done in accordance with the Wetland Protection Act, and it was based on the Lake Maspinock Aquatic Management Plan, which was developed over 2 to 3 years through the advisory group. Using EPA, it proposes treatment in the North Basin of a limited area by EPA-approved herbicides, using a Mass certified applicator in accordance with the Mass DEP generic environmental impact report. It was reviewed by Lucas Environmental, which I hear we have someone on board from them tonight, but also we satisfied any questions about that. We then reviewed public comments regarding pesticides and produced additional information. One of the specific requests from the Concom was to provide examples of other Concom's orders of conditions for lakes which are undergoing herbicide treatment. And I said to Don, probably in mid-March, examples from Barnstable, Westford, Sturbridge, and Andover. I don't know, Don, if you had a chance to distribute those to the commission?
Those were distributed. I did read them all.
Okay.
My fellow chairman
Just
did
trying
as
to
well.
catch up where we stand and such.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. Thank you.
I think at that point we had pretty much provided our presentation. We had public comments in the original meeting. There were public comments but we ran out of time in the commuted. And again, I think pretty much the point where I would just simply say at this point, I think we would urge the commission to review the evidence, accept more public comments if they provide more information and not more personal opinion. And again, if they decide that they can approve this, then come up with conditions for its safe application. If for whatever reason they have issues with that, I would probably also want them to probably explain in terms of either regulatory or policy way what their issues are in terms of that. And I guess I'm still available to open questions, but otherwise I'll mute unless called upon.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. One other thing that I just wanted to add, as far as since our last meeting, we've received quite a few letters, both for and against the treatment by herbicides. Since the last meeting, or actually I think total in the file, we have about 27 written comments in favor of the herbicide treatment and 9 written comments opposed, in addition to obviously the public comments that have been shared to this point that are part of the record from the previous meetings, from those that were in attendance. We also have in the file, and I think we had these at the last meeting as well, but from various town departments who weighed in on the project as well: town engineer, fire chief, Parks and Rec, planner, etc. One thing I just wanted to cover with the board is that when we go to vote on this, or at the end of the hearing, after we finish receiving our comments and information, I think this is important to vote on this under the act as well as the bylaw separately. The reason being that the Hopkinton bylaw protects some additional interests above and beyond what the act does. The bylaw has 3 additional public interests that includes recreation values, wildlife, and erosion sediment control. And I think that wildlife and recreational value are 2 things that have been brought up multiple times throughout this process on both sides of the table for consideration. All right. Before I open it up to the public, and again, for members of the board commenting and members of the public that might be providing additional comment, everything that's been said to date is in the record. All the members have been present. We're looking for any new information, new thoughts that you might want to share before we vote on this project. So if you have something new, if you could keep it to about 3 minutes in the essence of time, we'd appreciate any additional comments or feedback. So at this time, does anyone from the board have anything that they would like to ask
Chair,
or note? Sure, Ted.
I seem to remember that when we last met, there was some question we were going to throw to town council about what the town meeting vote meant and whether this discussion really matters if there's one interpretation of that town meeting vote versus if there's another. Do we have any clarity on that?
Yeah, I can try and bring those up. I remember seeing something from town council, just looking through the, thought it was in the comments section.
I'm sorry if I missed that letter, Don and everyone, but I did.
So through the chair, while Don's looking that up, Melissa, I just wanted to just clarify that, what we're contemplating here is the spot treatment using the herbicides if it's necessary as determined by the weed committee and the DPW. So I didn't hear if Cynthia or Dave, because I was letting people in while we were, while Mr. Mitchell was talking, but, do we have an understanding of what the current conditions are and any, current evaluation or opinion as to whether or not we're going to need to do the treatment here in the next month?
This is Dave Mitchell. I see that Cynthia is online. I think she probably is in a better position to answer since she's actually been out in the lake. Cynthia, are you able to respond to that?
Yes, I am. The survey, the spring survey is not scheduled until June 4th or 5th. We have not hammered that date yet. But anecdotally, looking out as I boat and kayak in the area, the water is nice and clear, and just like last year, same sightings as last year, nothing at this time. It just exploded over the course of the next 3 or 4 weeks. Last year, it just exploded with the warmth. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Our findings of the survey will be made public as soon as we accomplish that, though.
Okay, thank you. Don, did you find the letter you were looking for? Looks like you did.
Yes, hopefully you can see that. So these are the questions that John Westling sent to town council, and his response is up here.
So in our view, the amendment containing the language that you referenced applies only to the expenditure of $60,000 appropriated for Lake Maspinock weed control by the 2015 annual town meeting. Thus, if those funds have been expended or closed out to free cash, the language is no longer relevant. So I'm interpreting that email that I think that what was spent at town meeting, the 60,000 was for the lake management plan. So it looks to me that town council saying that the vote was only applicable to that $60,000 used for the report and wasn't meant to extend into anything else.
maybe the applicant's representative could chime in their understanding.
Well, this goes back several years. Believe the 60,000 was for the treatment itself. Believe the report itself was a smaller fraction of that. It did support the development of the plan. So it wasn't, the 60,000 wasn't initially for just a report. It did sponsor a report, but the report probably cost under 20,000 and probably under 15. So the funds that were assigned that went with that my understanding is it's no longer applicable. This is really something that I think John Westerling could tell you the definitive answer on, but that is my understanding.
So I think that regardless of what the intention of the vote was or what people thought they were voting for weeds or not, or how the money was spent, the money is no longer there that was voted on. So I think town council is saying that it's no longer relevant in what we're voting on today, as far as we can go ahead and make our decision, and it doesn't hinge on something that, this town meeting language. Does that answer your question, Ted?
I think it does. I think it's lawyer speak, but I think that we're agreeing with what that lawyer speak is intending to say.
I agree. Our lawyer says it's no longer relevant, so we're gonna, I guess, put that behind us. Just to get back to your comment, Jeff, on the herbicide application. So I think what you're getting at is that what we're voting on here is for, we're making a decision on whether or not the application of herbicide is permittable based on the act in the bylaw to the lake. If the committee decides that that's the course of action they want to take after the spring survey. And based on, past years of what we've seen, Ms. Esteheimer indicated there's no reason to doubt that this year the weeds are going to be any less than they have been in the past. And most likely that will be the approach they're going to want to take if we were to approve it.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. One of the things that I did notice in the example orders of conditions that were provided for Andover, Westford, Sturbridge, was that they all had conditions in there that for each application or any time that basically that, they were granting the approval, but then there was always a condition that herbicides could not be applied unless the Concom was presented in that particular year and given notice in advance and a schedule for the program of treatment for that particular year. So one thing I just wanted to kind of clarify is that our decision tonight is on, like I said, whether or not herbicide treatment is acceptable for the lake under our bylaw. And then we would further condition, or once the survey is done in the spring this year and any years going forward, that would be submitted to the commission at that point in time, and we would have a chance to take a look at that and weigh in at that point before herbicides were applied this year and any year going forward. Is that correct? And I guess I'm asking that of anyone on the applicant side.
I believe that's correct. Again, I don't have all the orders of condition. I sent it down in front of me, but I think the intent is correct. That there's every year there's a subject to some approval, and using an example that I'm aware of, usually in April or May, there would be an approach by a lake association group to set up the conditions that would be critical or would trigger the treatment. And in some cases, these are chronic issues with the lake. So I guess that's all I can add right now.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So that would certainly be consistent with other entities that have vegetation management plans, such as utilities, railroads. I think Mass DOT has to have it where there's a 5-year vegetation management plan that puts together a sort of a larger document that says, these are all the types of things that we're going to do for vegetation management. And then there's an annual yearly operational plan that's required that actually says, okay, this is specifically what we're planning to do this year because of X, Y, and Z. So I think that model is consistent with sort of larger entities that have to do this type of thing. So in my opinion, that would be consistent and sort of a well-proven method for the commission to stay informed.
Okay. And I guess go ahead.
I'm sorry. And if this is clear to everyone else, I apologize for slowing down. Are we then voting on a one-time application here at the beginning of the summer, not even a second application in July if someone determines they need that? Are we looking at voting on a one-time early summer application?
Good evening.
Hi, John.
Sorry for the late arrival. Please accept my apologies. I had some technical difficulties with Zoom. So I just heard Mr. Barker Hook's question about application. It's our intent that the application would be once in June or July, and that would have full effect for the season.
Through the chair, is intent the same as what we would be legally improving?
I guess, Don, can you bring up the notice of intent application? And does it have a timeline in here?
Well, an order of conditions would be issued for at least 3 years. And if it was a maintenance thing, they could have applied for a 5 like we did on the dam. I don't know if the applicant can say how they submitted it.
Well, through the
Did they
chair.
ask?
Yes, Mr. Wessling.
Thank you. Herbicide application, think of that, it's a post-emergent product. So you have to wait until the weeds have taken root and are growing and are showing, and then you apply the herbicide. So its effectiveness is once they've grown, and then once you apply the herbicide, then it's taken its effect and you don't have to apply it again in the season. And by that time, what we noticed last year with our surveys of the lake is that once probably mid-August, late August came around, that they started to naturally die off anyways, the weeds. So, the application of the herbicides, the way that they're applied post-emergent, it would be once per season. And from a financial perspective, I think that we would only be able to afford once per season. So that's what we're looking at, is a single application this season.
And I believe that because the order of conditions is good for 3 years, then you would potentially be coming back again next year after a spring survey was done and the post survey at the end of last year with potentially a proposal to apply again in the spring next year under this order, if an order of condition was granted.
Through the chair, that's absolutely correct. And we're not even sure if we have to apply herbicides this year. We have yet to get out on the lake to do our survey. Some of the feedback that we've got thus far is that people who have been out on the lake at least a couple of weeks ago didn't see a lot of weed growth. But again, it's going to require the committee to get out on the lake and do a survey and see how the weeds are growing.
And at this point, there's nothing, and obviously, I think we talked a few times that the town was still going to look into drawing down the lake in the winter if possible. There's obviously some issues with, the shallow well, but that's something that's potentially still on the table. But what we're approving tonight, what we are considering tonight is limited to management with herbicides. There's not anything else per se that's part of this plan. The plan is the herbicides at this point in time. And I guess that's.
Aye.
Down, the application and the notice of intent is for the application of herbicide. So at this point, because we didn't do the drawdown, the extended drawdown this past winter, if we get to a point where our survey shows that we do have extensive weed growth, then our option available to us at this point for this season would be the application of herbicides.
Does anyone else from the board have any questions or comments before I open it up for further public comment?
Through the moderator or through the chair, please.
Yes, Ed.
This is Ed Harrow. I have a couple questions. I have taken advantage of some webinars, and I think people that know me know that my sense of chemicals is not positive, but my concerns have been put a little bit to rest. But this is not a one-facet problem. And I don't believe that a one-facet application of herbicides is a solution. I have a study here, which I notice doesn't show up on the screen. The effects of motorboats on water quality in shallow lakes. And there's no question that motorboats exacerbate the problem of weeds and propagation of weeds. And the second issue is the application of fertilizers on lawns and things around the lake. Rather than taking a rifle approach with a magic bullet, I would much rather see an approach that looked at all of these facets and figured out a solution involving all of them. Thank you.
Just through the chair, a clarification on a point that was said earlier, I think by Mr. Westerling. So the weeds are going to die off on their own at the end of August, whether we treat them or not.
Don't quote me on the end of August. I might refer to Mr. Mitchell for help. But we noticed last year that they did die off naturally on their own.
Okay, so this isn't a matter that if we don't treat the weeds, they're going to get worse and worse every year and choke out the lake because they just die off on their own anyway?
Through the chair, if I could ask Mr. Mitchell to weigh in.
Sure.
Yep. Just in terms of the weed natural life cycle, a lot of these weeds grow very quickly, mid to early summer. They blossom in some cases. Sometimes the flowers are actually underwater. They start to get on past about August. A lot of them start to naturally senesce, and you'll see the leaf material doesn't look that good. They just don't magically go away. They slowly kind of rot, and it comes into September. Usually by October, most of this is gone. But the point is not just like they'll go away by themselves. It is the expansion of the areas in which they're in that we're looking at. So we're looking to treat areas where there is heavy infestations of these, and the idea being that we don't want these areas to expand. As most of these are colonizing invasive species, they will continue to, either through seed or in some cases just vegetative propagules, expand into areas where there's light and rooting material. So we've seen before where there's an expansion in the amount of areas where there is difficulty for swimmers or recreational will expand to the point where at some point it will never get to the deep areas because the deep areas are too deep for them to grow in. But it will not be something where they won't get worse than they are right now, I guess. There's the chance it will go back to something like 2013 or 2014, where there was a really high density of the weeds in through most of the North Basin.
Thank you.
So they'll never get to the point where they'll choke out the lake and kill the ecosystem. They'll then.
Through the chair, they won't choke out the ecosystem. It will just be a different kind of ecosystem. Nature's indifferent to what's in the water. I mean, so they will have some adverse effects, certainly on recreation, can have some adverse effects to certain types of fish. But it'll still be an ecosystem. I guess I leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the board?
Through the chair,
Yes.
on the shared screen, I was able to find approval is sought for application to treatment areas in late spring, early summer, possibility of later spot treatments. But in this sentence, the decision to treat in a specific year will be based on several factors. So if the commission does issue a 3-year permit, because they would have to ask for the 5, and I don't know if that's available under, because this was filed as a project improvement, I forget the language, environmentally.
Limited ecological restoration.
Thank you. Their ecological restoration. So I don't know if that's available for a 5-year, but I don't see anywhere where they ask for a 5. So it would be a 3, unless the commission wanted to condition it as a 1 and make them come back and do extension permits. I don't know I don't think we've talked about that. But right now, the way I'm reading this is it would be a 3-year permit, and they would, if you wanted to condition them before each specific year, you would do that as discussed in the order of conditions that was shared.
Okay. That makes sense, Don. I think I'm on the same page. We're looking at a 3-year order of conditions if it's approved, and then we can write the conditions later.
Okay.
And work on those, and they might include having them come in front of the board before each treatment or something to that effect if we decide that's what we want to do.
Okay.
I think we should probably open it up to see if there's any comments from the public. Again, we're just looking for new information that hasn't yet been submitted to the file. And if you could just first state your name, address, and keep it to 3 minutes because we need to vote on this before 7:30.
All right, so I'll moderate it for you, Melissa, since I have the control panel here with the public who has their hands raised. So I'll open it up. It's just a cell phone number, 508-625-2096.
Hello, can you hear me?
508-625-2096.
Yes, hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Ann Karnofsky. I live on East Main Street, 132 East Main.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, in my understanding of the situation, the drawdown has been effective, and the only thing that would prevent the drawdown would be the problem with the shallow well. What I'd like to request is that the health board of the town make a water test at the well, because I don't believe the well would be water that could be used for drinking. It hasn't been tested in a while, so that would not be a factor. That's what I have to say. Is that clear?
Yes, that's clear. I think at this point what we are looking at is whether or not herbicide application is acceptable to the commission.
It isn't. And it is not acceptable at this point because we could resume the drawdowns and we could test that shallow well to see if it is a factor. There's no necessity to do anything this summer with herbicides.
This is for the commission to decide. We appreciate your comment, and the commission is definitely, has always been in support of the lake drawdown, and I believe that all members of the board would support me in saying that. So we would continue.
I want to stress that that shallow well, that the water quality in that well should be tested by the Hopkinton Board of Health.
Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next public participant is Kathy with Kathy's iPhone. Go ahead, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Sweeney, 193 West Main Street. I'm in the North Basin, and that we are seeing weeds in the North Basin earlier, much earlier than we usually do. It's all the way up at our beach. Usually we don't see them till end of maybe July, but we're already seeing them all the way up to the waterfront in our area. And I think that they're going to be quite a bit worse than usual. They are underwater, but they are growing and they're very obvious.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback.
Okay, so Chris and Marie Benning. Chris and Marie Benning.
There we go. Chris and Marie Benning, 14 Downey Street. Looking right across the lake at Mrs. Sweeney, actually. A couple of quick items. Number one, I believe that I read while it was on the screen in the DEP file, I believe it was 12.28, that requires annual approval. I put something in the chat, but just if that helps bring any clarity. The other point that I wanted to raise was simply that the timing of this, especially with this unprecedented lockdown, social isolation, making the lake unusable for swimming or recreation for, depending on which file you read, 2 to 4 weeks is way less than ideal, and I would push back on doing it this season. Anything else to add? We'll yield the rest of our time.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gasser. Maury Gasser.
Yes. Hear me? Okay. This is Maury Gasser, 28 South Mill Street. I'm speaking on behalf of Hopkinton Area Land Trust Board of Directors. We sent a letter a little while back. We're not against the use of herbicides specifically, but there seems to be an inconsistency between what the management plan of 2016 gave as options and the conclusions that the CIG report stated, specifically with regard to mechanical harvesting, because it seems that mechanical harvesting was an option. It was stated as being appropriate for LMZ 1 and 2. When I calculate the cost that was stated in that document, it's within the budget that I was told, with the $60,000 budget that the DPW has. So it seems to be cost effective. And I just don't see that having been seriously considered in the report that that should be an option. I also want to point out that there are people who are willing to hand harvest where the mechanical harvester can't work in the rocky areas. That can be effective as well. And also a partial drawdown plus mechanical harvesting, even if it's not complete, could be good enough. We just don't know. And I just don't see those issues having been addressed adequately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Donald's iPad. Donald?
Hi, I'm Carol Essler. I'm with John on my neighbor's business internet because much of Verizon is down in the Lake neighborhood, both telephone and internet, meaning that a great deal of moth, Maspinook opposed to herbicides, is not able to get on to speak. But let me go ahead with my prepared comments. I've talked before about science studies, Parkinson's, cataracts, ethylene dibromide. That's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. Tonight, what I have to say is about a wider perspective. It is about values, how we treat our ecosystems and each other. We could do what is expensive, expedient, short-sighted, and disrespectful. This would leave poisoned soil, angry neighbors, unknown future health effects, disrupted natural balance, and a daily uncomfortable feeling about contact with the lake. Please, let's look more deeply into both our water and our actions. We could wait for the next drawdown. We don't even know how the weeds will be this year. We could be patient, cautious, humble in the presence of natural processes, and respectful. People tend to see how things look on the surface rather than considering questions about our relationship with all of life. Don't even get me started on how fertilized lawns contribute to the many nutrients in the lake. Let's not just throw more poisons at something we don't like the looks of. Another issue is that the town has voted herbicides down by a wide margin, and I believe most people felt they were voting against the herbicides. Zoom in the middle of a pandemic is a poor substitute for full democracy. I urge the committee to respect the will of this community, to understand that a vocal minority is advocating for herbicides, some of whom do not even live in Hopkinton and do not have the right to spend Hopkinton tax dollars. A few more sentences here. Concom is charged with wetland resource protection. I ask, who are we as a community? Are we people who act for expedience and superficial convenience, or are we people who actually respect nature, democracy, and real environmental values? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Okay, Drew Logan.
Hi, good evening. It's Drew Logan, 30 Lakeshore Drive. I'm also president of the Lake Maspinock Association and also a member of the Citizens Input Group. Just to address two comments that were made earlier that may be able to shed some light on them. First, just in terms of the comment about this being a singular approach, I did want to comment on the fertilizer runoff and the health of the lake. The Citizens Input Group and the LMPA tests the lake multiple times a year for nitrogen, dissolved oxygen, phosphorus, E. coli. The tests have consistently come back exceptionally good over the years. Part of this is due to the high percentage of homes that are actually on town sewer on the lake. If you read the previous reports of the lake, you'll see that there was an association with water quality improvement when the sewers went in. Additionally, the LMPA, and this is in Citizens Input Group, does education to all the lake residents about safe fertilizers with no phosphorus and no nitrogen. So we think that our educational efforts pay off. So this was the lake management plan and watershed plan was a multifactorial plan. The good news is we have a very healthy lake, and fertilizer runoff and other runoff does not appear to be a problem at this time. The second comment I'd like to make is, and I would ask Mr. Mitchell to weigh in on this. Someone had mentioned that the swimming restrictions would be 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know of other restrictions that significant of other lakes that are using herbicides, and maybe Mr. Mitchell could weigh in on what he knows about other lakes and their restrictions.
I think we've covered that in regards to restrictions in previous meetings. I believe all the literature says, within a day or two, most things can resume. We also talked about how there's a certain comfort level as far as how people feel and whether they're comfortable with using the lake or not, which could be for any amount of time, is what we discussed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Melissa, I think that's it for public comments. Just scrolling through. I don't see any other ones at this point.
John Catino, I'd like to make a public comment if I may.
Go ahead. Did you give your address for the record?
Yes, John Catino, 1 David Joseph Road, but also speaking as a member of the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board. First, I'd like to thank all the volunteers and the advisory group, Concom, town professionals, and everybody else that's been tuning in. This is a very difficult decision that everybody has to make. Our lakes and trails and are major crown jewels for the town. And when the Select Board put together this advisory group, we very specifically made sure that we put people on there that are both against using herbicides no matter what, and also people that were open-minded to them. And the commission came to us a couple months ago and did a presentation, and the Select Board overwhelmingly supported their findings and their need to do spot treatment. And I believe that the commission, the Concom, should also do the same and support this 1-year limited spot treatment. And to respond to Mr. Harrow's comment, we as a town have negotiated, and we're just about ready to purchase the island so that we can do a deep draw for next year. So this really looks like it's going to probably be the only time we may have to do it. So to check in every single year, I don't think will be a problem. So we went for the overwhelmingly important thing of getting control of the island so that we can do a deep draw any year that it's necessary. So this really would be the only time we need it. And it really, last year we had a big explosion in weeds, and I'd hate to see it happen this year because it's just going to expand each time because we weren't able to do a drawdown. But thank you very much. Thanks for really considering all of the opinions.
Thank you for.
Madam Chair, this is Ed Harrow.
Yes, Ed.
For the record, I did not have any comments about the island and deep drawdown. My comments were limited to fertilizers on the surrounding properties and the effective power boats on shallow lakes. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Melissa,
Jeff, this is Ron Seamus. I tried to raise my hand, but I clearly didn't have the technology expertise. So Ron Seamus, 36 Lakeshore Drive. So 2 comments. I've been listening and trying to keep an open mind about this, but 2 things that I heard at the last meeting, which are still not clear. One is there was conditional approval by somebody in town government that said if it's not allowed in the European Union, it is, then he doesn't approve of it. I don't remember who that person was. I thought we said at the last meeting, it was somebody provided evidence that it was not approved for use in the European Union. So did we clarify that?
Through the chair, Dawn, are you able to pull up the comments from John Gelsich, or you've got them there? Thank you very much. And what he said through the chair again is, I would recommend the use of pesticides that are also approved by California and the European Union rather than just the EPA and DEP. And that was from the town planner, John Gelsich.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think there was evidence that said it was not approved by the EU. So
I believe it was not, but this is just a recommendation from the town planner. It's not a anything binding.
Okay. That was my one comment. The second comment was, I didn't hear conclusive evidence either way, whether it was 1 or 2 days or 2 weeks of shutdown. I heard evidence that said both. I don't know which is right or wrong, but some of the evidence I saw from the state of New Jersey said that it was at least 2 weeks for the use of these things. So I'd like to know, one, which is it? Number two, when we do shut this down, that means we're shutting down the beach and the boat launch for a certain amount of time, especially when the boat is coming in and out, right? So I'm concerned about that because I don't live too far from the boat launch, and I spend a lot of time down there. So
Right, I think, yes.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Mr. Mitchell, do you have comment on the period of which we would have to close the lake or limit swimming in there?
Through the chair, this is Dave Mitchell. We had this discussion before. New Jersey may have different rules. We have to look what's going on in Massachusetts and EPA. For the herbicides we're looking at probably a 1 to 2 day shutdown. And that's more in terms of now making sure both for the safety of the boaters that you don't want to run into the application boat, and in terms of the water clear. So it's not 2 weeks. It'd be 2 days, not 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
All right, Walter Garland.
Yes,
Mr. Garland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me? Mr. Chair?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to voice our support. I'm Walter Garland at 50 Downey Street in Hopkinton. I see Don has the letter up here that I sent to the Conservation Commission. So I guess I won't repeat that since it's here for everyone to see. But my wife and I do strongly support the use of herbicides in the lake for the many reasons that I mentioned here. And I also understand that what you're being asked to approve now is not the specific application, but just our ability to have that as an option, and that the spring survey will tell us specifically what is needed and what quantity and where. So am I clear on that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Yes, that's how we understand it.
Okay. Well. So this is really just allowing the town the option based on the results of the spring survey. So certainly very vocal supporters of that, Mr. Chairman and the board. We have work in other places in Massachusetts. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I think in the interest of time, we should probably, Melissa, you have to drop off.
I do.
Okay.
But yes, I think we got all the, I think we hit all the points and we got all the comment from the public. So I think we can go ahead and vote on this. And I think we should split the vote between the two, vote twice, once for the act and once for the bylaw. So is this me, Jeff? I go around the...
Through the chair, a quick question.
Yes.
just help me with order of things. Should we consider conditions before a vote? Or is it a vote and then we apply conditions? I'm especially interested in making absolutely sure that if this gets approved, it's a one-time this year or a return to Concom for another application, not a 3-year green light.
Through the chair, Melissa,
Mhm.
I think we can just have Don, predicate that in the, put a special condition in, indicating that in the order.
Right. I think I share Ted's feelings here in that I don't know if we've done it on this board before, but I know I've done it for other boards. Voting or closing the hearing and then working out the conditions after the fact. I mean, there might be some things from the Andover Westford and other projects that we want to incorporate into our conditions if it were to be approved.
To the chair.
Yes.
So I assume you guys are looking to have a draft order of conditions presented to you for further discussion at the next meeting in 2 weeks. And I can incorporate all the conditions from the other, and then we can do a strike through, of things you don't want and things you do.
Correct. I think can we vote and then do that procedurally?
Yeah, you're gonna.
If it's if it's a negative vote, then it doesn't matter, and we don't need to go through all the conditions.
Right.
If it's approved,
then it would be drafted, based on the negative.
Correct.
With a finding of fact. Any denial would have a finding of fact.
Right. Are you comfortable with that, Ted?
Sure. If that is legal and legit, sure.
Okay. So we'll vote on this. We'll be pending, conditions that we'll hash out at our next meeting, if it is to be approved. So I guess first we'll vote on the act. Can I get a motion?
This is Jim. I'll make that motion.
I'll second. This is Jeff.
Motion for what?
Is this a motion to approve the use of herbicides? This is for the act. So, Janine?
No.
Ted?
No.
Jeff?
This is Jeff, yes.
Ed? Ed Harrow?
Uh-oh.
There we go. Ed Harrow, no.
Jim?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
And then myself, most of the chair, I'm gonna vote no. And for the bylaw? Janine? Oh, I need a motion.
Pause, just a quick pause, Chair.
Yes.
Just to be clear, I've got 4 no's and 3 yes, so we would not be approving under the act, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, this is Jim. Is Carrie on the call?
Yes, she voted.
Oh, she did. Okay.
In favor, yep.
Okay.
Could I get a motion?
Melissa,
regard-
can we stop for 1 second? I didn't agree with Don's votes. I had 4 yeses and 3 nos.
I had Janine as no.
Oh, Janine was a no. I'm sorry. I had her as a yes.
Okay, yeah, I had her as a no.
Sorry, Janine.
Could I get a motion in regard to the bylaw?
This is Jim. I'll make that motion.
This is
Motion
Jeff,
to
I'll
approve?
second.
So this was a motion to approve the use of herbicides. Janine,
No.
Ted,
No.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ed,
This is Ed, no.
Jim,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
myself, Melissa, no.
Okay. I will prepare a document to that effect for your review at the next meeting.
Thank you, Don.
All right, Melissa, if you want to drop off, I'll take it from here.
I will. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
If I may, just through the chair,
Yes, Mr. Westling.
just wanted to thank the Conservation Commission for all the time that you've put into this. You've been very diligent in your review of our application. I just want to say thank you. Although disappointed with the results, I respect the process and I respect your decision. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Thank you, John.
Bye now.
Okay, Mr. Petruzzi, 0 Leonard Street. Donna, you want to give me a heads up when you're ready? So this is HCC application 39, HCC application 33, HCC application 35, HCC application 36, HCC application 37, HCC application 38, and a request for determination of applicability 2020-3. So, good evening, Mr. Petruzzi.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good, thank you. So before we get started on this, just from a procedural standpoint, we have a couple of the applications that I think are not applicable to your filing at this point. And to be a little bit more specific, that would be HCC 33, the continuation of the notice of intent for the construction of the roadway for the subdivision. And secondarily, the HCC 38, the notice of intent for the continuation to construct a single-family home for Lot 4A. So I guess, from a procedural standpoint, the commission would request that those applications be withdrawn. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think it does make sense if the proposal that we have going forward is where we're headed. I have no objections to withdrawing those applications. At the present time, we've left those applications pending with the construction of Buckland Street. We've left that pending with the planning board. Depending on the outcome of these proceedings with the alternate access from Leonard Street.
Okay, so why don't we do this then? Why don't we move forward with the other applications, and then we'll address these at the end of the hearing, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so can you give us an update on where we stand now?
Sure. Well, I have Rob Truex on the line with us. He can go over the revisions that we made to the plan based on the last meeting. And also there's been some additional information that's been submitted to the commission related to the invasive species management and the stormwater management and maintenance plan. So I'll let Rob take it from here and he can discuss the revisions that we made to the plan based on the comments that the commission made at the last meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, Rob Truax from GLM Engineering Consultants. So Dawn, if you could pull up sheet 4 of 8, I think would be the best one. So at the last meeting, we discussed a few things. If you look at the driveways for lot 2A and 3A, we've shifted those to avoid filling the little pointed area of the wetlands there that projected out towards the driveways. So we've shifted that over. We've actually mirrored the house on lot 2A to pull the driveway further away from the wetlands up in front of the house. Made a little adjustment to that lot line for those two lots. And in doing so, we were able to avoid any wetland impacts of filling for the new line as well as the current line that's before you. In addition to that, the other thing we did was the basin, which it's called a basin, but technically it's kind of just really a spreader trench outlet device, which is behind the house on lot 3A. And if you recall, it was kind of angled in a different direction, kind of towards the house off the end of Maple Ave there. We've swung that around a little closer to the wetland line and made it parallel to the, I guess I'd call that the side lot line at this point from Leonard Street, and made it wider as well. So the spreader trench is a little wider now. It's pulled further away from the Maple Ave extension, and it still maintains 50 to 60 feet from the property line. The other thing we did was we added wetland bounds at the top of the slope. There's 3 on lot 1A. Yeah, there's 3 on lot 2A. And then there's 3 on lot 3A. And I put the ones on 3A, and you may want to revise that. I'm not sure what your feeling will be, but I put them on the opposite side of the drain trench, on the little berm that would be there going down the middle of that berm that we're going to create to guide that water to that back area. With that, I think that's really the only major changes that we show on the plan. Those are the 3 things. The other thing we did was we did submit a revised O&M. There were some comments back and forth between Dawn and her consultant, Lucas Environmental. So we've basically taken that document, made 2 documents. One is for the construction phase, and then one being for the long-term maintenance of it. And we're actually calling it now the Leonard Street residence. So that would be the long-term one that the residents would be responsible for. There'll be a homeowners association that would oversee that. So I think then the other thing we submitted, as Mr. Petrozzi said, was we did submit, or Paul McManus submitted the invasive vegetation management. I do believe you received that today, so I'm not sure you've had a chance to even review that. Maybe he can go through it for you. He is on with us tonight, and he could go through that briefly if you'd like as well. So as far as the plan goes, those are the changes that we've made. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, Mr. McManus, you want to just give us a Reader's Digest version of your invasive management plan?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. Don, could you just go to the last page? There's a figure. Thank you. You'll see in this figure is very similar to the first iteration of this plan, where I've identified areas of the dominant patches of invasives. And what I did was I took the same lines from the old plan and then put them on this new version. So you'll see the biggest area is in the northeast corner, be the top right on this figure, which is, there's a lot of patches of Japanese barberry and the bush honeysuckle. you'll notice that most of that area would be encompassed by the proposed development on lot 1 and 2. In addition to that, down in the lower right corner of this figure, there's, if people remember, there's a really dense stand of Japanese knotweed that's actually within the Leonard Street right-of-way, and then some, which is the green area, and then some honeysuckle and multiflora rose be to the left. Those two areas will be pretty much encompassed by the proposed expansion of the paving and the drainage swale for on Leonard Street, excuse me. So in addition to that, essentially the management that's proposed for the other areas where I've identified these patches is the same as in the document in its original form. And you know, we spell that out, but it's the same as what was in there before. The one difference on this document really is that I had proposed, it spelled out plantings, buffer zone plantings, but Rob has put those on a supplemental plan sheet. So rather than have them be in two different places and to avoid any possible little, you know, minor differences, I just pulled that information off. So the planting is all on the GLM plan. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, great, thank you. So I just had one question for Rob or Mr. Petrozzi. So the driveway going into lot 2A and lot 3A, you know, we had talked about whether or not that could be narrowed at all. It still looks like kind of a double-barreled driveway going in. So if you could just speak to that.
Well, I've exchanged a couple of emails with the fire chief, and they have a minimum fire apparatus, and that's you know, we haven't completely ironed out all the details yet. The fire chief would like a place to pull in and be able to turn around, and we think that the reason why we put the driveways close together that way is because they could conceivably have a shoulder between the two.
Mr. Petrozzi.
Did I lose you guys?
Oh, okay, he's back.
Yeah, there I am. Okay. So we've had this exchange of emails, and I haven't really had a conversation with the fire chief, but he would prefer to have, they have a driveway bylaw that has a minimum width requirement with the gravel shoulders, and this will accommodate the visions of that regulation. So that's, you know, we're at this present time where we're between the fire chief, we're trying to keep it so that it's, I think we've got 22 feet of pavement there right now.
Yeah. So, right.
I mean, we could possibly reduce it, you know, to 20 feet with the gravel shoulders on either side, but it would be similar to just having the pavement there without the gravel shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can, and I haven't gotten comments from everyone yet, but I would just encourage you to continue to explore whether that can be narrowed. You know, it's less cost for you, obviously, you know, less paving, less impact to the wetlands. And you know, as I said, we just approved another subdivision, common driveway for another developer in town, and I'm pretty sure it was narrower than 20 feet. I thought, Don, do you recall over at Stony Brook?
Yeah, I was just looking for the plan. I should have it. I should be able to download it in a second.
Okay, I mean, I don't think you need to download it, Don, but you know, as long as we get Mr. Petruzzi's commitment that he's going to continue to explore that and, see if that can be narrowed. That would be good.
Because I think the common driveway met the fire bylaw, and it had just a little area for a pullout.
Right.
I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe that the narrowest fire lane you can do today is 20 feet.
Okay, maybe it was 20 feet.
So I think, Mr. Chairman, it would be very easy to just say, and you could condition that the driveways be pushed together with you could do a stripe down the middle if you wanted to, and they each be 10 feet. And it wouldn't be shared. The property line could still travel down the middle. And it would accomplish the same thing as a shared driveway.
Yeah, and I, I'm just looking to try to minimize the impact of the buffer zone
Right.
there. That's all.
I think if we file it as a common drive, everywhere I've been so far, this new fire thing that's out there is 20-foot minimum width they want.
Okay.
So, I mean, we can just leave it as independent drives with the property line right down the middle of a 20-foot wide driveway.
Okay.
They'll each have a 10-foot wide driveway on their own property.
Okay, so through the chair,
Yep.
because obviously I don't have the hard copy or scalable. So I guess what he's trying to say is it would be 10 here and a 10 here. So you'd have 20 of blacktop through there. Is that what you're
Correct.
saying, Rob?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we would, the cross section shows 11, 2 foot, and then 11. So we would take that and make it 10 and 10 with nothing in between.
Okay.
Through the chair,
Yes.
as long as we're on the driveway, if the fire chief is okay with the driveway going to lot 1A, why can't the shared driveway be the same width? Am I missing something?
Well, I don't think that Mr. Chairman, I don't think the fire chief is particularly happy with the width of the driveway on lot 1A.
Oh.
So, and that, as I've said to him, I've explained to him that, on the 1A case, we have room on the opposite side of the wetlands to make it a little bit wider if he requires it to be that way. But there's also some other things that are in the mix regarding fire protection and water, access to a hydrant, and other things that we're talking about right now that's part of the package, I guess you'd call it.
Okay.
Because right now there's no hydrant and it's only a 2-inch main. So we're trying to have a conversation about how to improve that situation along with, the whole package of the development that we're doing.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So Matt, did you have any comments, questions from your standpoint?
I think one thing that I think probably based on the last meeting that would be worth, I guess, Mr. McManus speaking to was he had prepared a memo talking about the potential impacts to the isolated wetland based on the changes in flow. And I don't think that had been discussed at all this evening, and I think it's probably worthwhile discussion.
Okay, I agree. Mr. McManus?
Sure. I don't know if you pull that up, Don, but essentially the crux of the issue is that with this plan, we would be making the easterly IVW potentially a little bit wetter. So what I did was I worked with Rob to make sure I understood the implications of that. So if you look in the upper left corner of the IVW on lot 2A, there's an outlet structure there, and that outlet structure will in large storms will temporarily impound water, and that water will go back to what was it, 516.5, which will impound water within a little bit of the IVW and within the area that's I'll call it the expanded flagged area. That ponding, however, is only for a matter of hours, 10, 12 hours, as I recall. More important, so that area would be saturated, but it'd be saturated, directly following a very large rain event when everything is saturated. So I don't think that's particularly meaningful in terms of the vegetation. What is meaningful is that there would be a small area. There'd be a small area that would be impounded below the lowest outlet of that structure, and that water that's impounded below that elevation, would only leave by percolation and evapotranspiration. So within that zone, there would be hydrology would be wetter in potentially a meaningful way. And by meaningful way, I mean that it would affect the vegetation that's there. What you have there now is a lot of facultative species. You have red maples, there's some white pines in there. You have facultative shrubs. What I would expect to happen within that zone, and Don, if you can find the document that I'm referring to, I have a figure in there where I outline that.
Is it this document?
No, it's my no, it's the one I submitted a couple weeks ago, or about a week ago.
The habitat evaluation?
Yeah.
No, it's the wetland interests, I believe I titled it. Wetland function. But at any rate, there is, Mr. Chairman, a small area up in that upper left corner of the IVW as you look at the plan, where I think it's reasonable to expect a potential shift in the plant community from kind of a facultative mix to a stronger predominance of wetland species. Yes, there you go. Thank you. Can you, if you flip, there's a figure. That's where I describe. Yeah, there you go. That's it. Thank you, Don. So that's the area, approximate area below proposed outlet of 506.5. I said 16. I apologize. So that area there would be, which you'll notice is interesting, is mostly comprised of the area with the potentially expanded wetland flags. That area, I would expect the hydrology to be wetter, because again, it's area where the ground is lower than the lowest outlet elevation of that outlet structure. That's in the real left corner.
Okay.
So that water again will only leave by percolation or evapotranspiration. So I expect that what would happen there is we would get a shift in the plant community to a wetter type of community. So then the question is, from interests of the bylaw perspective, what does that mean? Is that it would be a change? I'm predicting a change. Is it positive, negative, or neutral? And I think it's, for a lot of the interests, it's neutral. I think for some, you could, there's a case that it's perhaps a slightly positive change. I don't think it would be a negative change, but it would be a change.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, Matt, anything else?
No, I think I really, I was pretty much in agreement with Paul's description he just gave there and what was in his report, that, there is going to be a change, and I guess it's to the commission to decide, if that's significant enough that it would impact your decision or not. Just wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on that, because I know that was something that had come up at the previous meetings, I think by a couple of the members. With regard to the other documents that were submitted most recently, I thought that was all fine. I didn't have any other further comment.
Okay. So in my view, and I'll open this up to the other commission members, if there's a neutral positive change in that area, I think I'm okay with that. So I don't have a problem with it. Okay, why don't I open it up to the other commission members now for questions or comments?
This is Ed Harrow, and my only question is the one that Ted Barker Hook has already asked about the driveway. If the narrow driveway is semi-acceptable, then it would seemingly like that the double driveway could be made considerably narrower. That's all.
Okay, and I think we have the commitment from the applicant that he's gonna look into, getting that to within, what's permittable through the fire department. Mr. Petrosi, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Barker Hook.
I think I'm a little bit less okay with that area in the northern part of the wetlands that we're talking about. I wonder, do we have a guess how many, and I may have misremembered the trees, white pines and red maples, or was it oaks, are in that zone? If they die, I presume we will need to remove them before they fall on these houses, and that means we're moving into the wetlands to do some construction on removing trees. So I wonder if I can have a sense, if it goes the way Mr. Petrosi's expert predicts, what are the next steps?
Mr. McManus, you want to comment?
I'm trying to think and give you an off the cuff guess as to the number of trees in there. Of number of large trees, I would expect a half a dozen to a dozen, but again, that's really just a guess based upon what the area looks like in general.
And what types are they? Maples?
I might be able to speak to that, Jeff and Paul. I might have been out there a little bit more recently than you, Paul. I'm not sure. I think there's a very large pine, but I think it's actually just outside of the revised wetland boundary, and it would probably be cut as part of the construction. So I think the majority of trees within that future flooding area are pretty much all red maples. And I don't recall anything super large, probably all less than 10-inch diameter. And I think probably the quantity that Paul mentioned, maybe half a dozen to a dozen is probably accurate. I think potentially you could put in a special condition that somehow speaks to that, to say that if they do need to be removed, that either they have to come back to the commission, and they're dropped in a way that increases the wildlife habitat as opposed to losing it, or something like that. But again, it may be many, many years before these trees actually see the effect where they die off. It could be, because depending on what the hydrology is and what the trees are, what the root systems of these trees already are, there was quite a bit of shallow rooting out there to begin with. So, Ted, I don't envision a situation where 3 years from now the homeowners are coming in and saying, "Oh, there's 12 dead trees in this swamp and we want to cut them all down." I think we're probably talking more, 10 years plus before we start to see anything like that, I would guess.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay. Jim, did you have a comment?
I did not. I have no more questions.
Okay. Carrie, Janine?
Through the chair, I just have one comment. I think Melissa mentioned it last time about like the permanent immovable barrier, and I was wondering if we have proposed locations for that.
Well, I didn't hear the question.
The PIBs, I think Mr. Truax had mentioned those earlier. Where the PIBs, the medallions will be on the lot locations.
We did. I did show you those. Sheet 4, if you go back to that right there, John. So there's 3 on lot A.
1A.
Oh, what we call them wetland bounds to be set. I don't know what you guys call them. PIBs. What's that point of?
Permanent immovable barrier.
Yeah. So right now we show them as wetland bounds. I don't know what kind of monuments you put in. Is it something more than a bound that sticks up like a foot or so out of the ground with a plaque on it?
I mean, ideally, I think we mentioned this at the last meeting too. If we could put like some type of split rail fence or something up at the, the top of the swale there along the boundary, just to prevent people from, from grass creep, people dumping grass clippings down into the wetland area.
We don't
Play
have
areas and woodsheds getting, kind of put in the buffer zone, that type of thing.
we wouldn't have an objection to that.
Okay. So it'd be like the, a split rail fence with the medallions.
Right. On the posts.
Yeah.
Sure. We don't have, that wouldn't be an issue.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Janine?
That was my question. It answered my question.
Yeah.
My only other comment, and I think it's going to be fine with a long-term operations and maintenance manual, is that a lot of their the maintenance for the stormwater BMPs is going to fall on lot 3A. So hopefully the homeowners do their homework and read the stuff because they'll be attached to the deed. But like that kind of depressed area in the back top left corner, I can totally see somebody seeing that as a nice flat area that they're going to try to put a shed in or something like that, not realizing it's a stormwater feature. I don't think there makes sense to put a fence or anything around it. I just hope that the homeowners are really doing their homework when they purchase these properties.
It really is, Mr. Chairman, an awareness thing for any homeowner and any project site that we do. But that's an area that, like you said, it's only a foot deep back there, that basin. It's really an outlet control type structure to spread the water out. And it's going to be grass. They're going to mow it. Hopefully they're going to maintain it by mowing it every time they mow their lawn.
That's the nice thing, is that the grass and the swale, it's easy to maintain. I can just absolutely see some people trying to put some kind of structures back there. So anything that highlights that would be helpful. A fence would have been great, but that just takes away too much. It is usable lawn space. It's just.
It is, correct.
I hope they don't try to put, like, they know, can't put a shed, can't.
Yeah, we
Jeff,
don't want
this is
swing
Jim.
fence gardens and, wood piles and things like that back there. That's all.
Jeff,
Yes.
it's Jim, I have a question, or I have a statement, or whatever.
Yeah.
There at the Fruit Street Fields, there's a basin there, and there's a sign on the basin and I don't recall exactly what it says, but it basically says, "Keep out, don't do anything in here." That might be a good example of something to put for this basin.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We can put a condition into that effect.
I'm sorry, through the chair. I don't know. I mean, that's a big basin, and that's great information. I'm picturing this as more of like what's out in front of like Waterfresh, where they actually do have picnic tables, and when it's dry out, they can use it. They just can't put anything permanent there. Because I think it's nice. It'll be a usable space. I'm just, some homeowner eventually 3 deeds from now is going to be like, oh, but yeah, maybe just the medallions will be enough.
Okay, you can work with Don and Matt, Mr. Petruzzi on, identifying either an appropriate sign or, something to that effect so that, we don't get structures in that area.
Right. Yeah, I think we can do that.
You're fading out a little bit, Mr. Petrosi, but I think that was an affirmative. Okay, so if there, let me see. All right, no other comments from the commission. Let me just open it up to comments from the public.
Jeff, I'd like to make one quick comment.
Yep, sure, go ahead, Ted.
So we're still in the process of this, and I want to say that the plan we're looking at now, I think, is much better than what we got in the beginning. I still have real worries with how much ordering work we're talking about. And I'd like to point out that in the space between 2A and 2B, I assume, I can't find the label, it looks like there's room for a house without being completely outside of the 100. And that to me is a better plan. If we are here to protect the wetlands, this plan does better than the first one. I think it can still be improved. I'd also throw out, I'm not a realtor or developer, a one house tucked in the woods there with a driveway through a couple wetlands might be a really attractive little cottage for a first time homeowner. And it might have some appeal to some. So before we get too much further, I just want to say I still have real reservations about how much we're inside a 100-foot buffer.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, it has been a process, but I think, at this point, I'll open it up to public comment, but I think at this point, we can vote on it. This is the plan that the developer has proposed, the most recent plan. And, I think we condition, we have a couple special conditions on the PIB, the fence with the medallions, some type of signage up where that stormwater area is in the northwest corner. And then, the applicant is going to look at, working with the fire department to try to narrow that double barrel driveway by a foot or two if that's feasible. But, I think this is the plan that, at this point we can vote on.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry. Ted and I have a string between us. We both see the same things, but he's quicker to pull it than I am. Lot 3A, probably 3/4 of that house is in the 100-foot buffer zone. Lot 2A, half of that house is in the 100-foot buffer zone. Lot 1A, the entirety of that house is in the 100-foot buffer zone. I have a problem with that. Thank you.
I'd say more than 3/4 of lot 3A is in the buffer zone. Looks like almost all of it as well. Well, no, maybe 3/4. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me just see if there's any public comments or questions. It does not look like anyone has their hand raised on the menu here. Let me just give it another look. Nope. Okay. All right, so let me just pose the question back to Mr. Petrosi. So Mr. Petrosi, would you like us to, where do you stand on this? Do you want us to take a vote on it? Do you want to, a couple comments from some of the other commission members about the buffer zone?
Well, I think we have to, we've been banting this
I'm sorry, you're breaking
project
a little.
along for quite a while, and we've over the last, I think we tried to accommodate everything over the last couple of years that the Conservation Commission and other town boards have made mention to us. So I think we need to. I don't see the plan changing very much. So we prefer to just move ahead with the vote
and chips fall where they're going to fall. I mean, I think there's other aspects of this that are involved, so we're putting our best foot forward at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we've worn out the carpet pretty well on this one. And you know, in my view, I think we're at the point now where we can vote as well. So
Jim? Jeff, this is Jim. Can I just say something?
Yep.
I echo the statement. This has been going on for a while. I think that the applicant's done, made huge changes from what we saw in the beginning, which seems like years ago. And I don't know that there's more that he can do to rearrange things.
No, thank you, Jim. I mean, I think what I hear Ed and Ted saying is, reducing the number of house lots on the property potentially, but I think, what I've heard from the developer or the applicant in the past is that, this is kind of what the plan is. He's not willing to do that. To echo your point, Jim, I think there have been proposed changes here that improve the drainage situation for some of the abutters. I think, at least in my view, there's been some significant mitigation that's been proposed, in terms of habitat improvement and wetland improvements for the isolated wetlands that just enhance the wetlands themselves, the values of the wetland. And this isn't a consideration of the commission, of course, but there are some improvements to the roadway that are being proposed, and hopefully this is a pending lawsuit as well. But again, that doesn't fall into our kind of deliberations and decision-making process as it pertains to the Wetland Protection Act for the RDA app and under the bylaw for the other filing. So having said that, let me just
one more thing, Jeff. Just one more thing.
Yep.
The number of houses has been reduced over time from what was originally proposed to the current.
Correct. It was 4, now it's 3. So yes. Yeah.
It was 5 originally.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
I also worry about precedent setting, that future developers can look and say, well, if we allowed a whole house in the buffer zone before, we'll need to do it again. So I'm just wondering, sort of in the approval, could there be sort of like notes or comments that, we took under consideration that it was because there were improvements in drainage, improvements in road and conditions of the wetlands, so that it's sort of on the record of why it got approved if it gets approved?
Through the chair?
Yep, go ahead, Don.
Yeah, this is, the applications have waiver requests, and under the bylaw, we have to include a finding of fact for any decision with a waiver request. And if I could just add, can I piggyback off on that? Just because when you're talking about the plan, you've got 6 different applications. So when you go to consider your votes, you've got two applications just for the improvements to Leonard Street, the RDA under the Act, and then HCC 39. Then you have individual votes, applications for this house, and for this house. So really, at no point are you voting for the entire plan,
right,
under any application.
Right, that's a great point, Don. I should have clarified that. Right, so, we're not approving this from a wholesale perspective. We have as Don, had mentioned, there's 2 filings for the roadway, and then we have the 3 individual house lots under the bylaw that we have to vote on as well. So,
And then you've got 2 that are on the board, one for Buckland Street and one for a 4th, because you've got right now open, you've got 4 single-family house lots. You've got 33, which was for Buckland, 39, which is for Leonard Street, and RDA 203 is for Leonard Street.
Hey, Don?
Yes, Matt.
Wasn't a vote taken, there was a vote taken on one of these that denied something, I recall.
Correct. So what we're dealing with on this one, HCC 39, this is a request for reconsideration under the bylaw for the improvements to Leonard Street.
So can I just intercept though? HCC 39 can be withdrawn because that was primarily to remove the culvert. So HCC 39 can be withdrawn at this point. Does that help?
Not really. Well, because you think you'd want to withdraw 33 because that's Buckland.
Well, that would be next. That would be the next withdrawal, but I don't want to withdraw that at this point because I don't know what the outcome of the rest of the 3 lots are going to be, lot 1A, 2A, and 3A.
But, okay, and to that point, Leonard Street improvements are involved under the Act and the bylaw. So the commission would be voting under the Act for RDA 20.
Correct. Yeah,
and then under the bylaw would be 39. Leonard Street improvements.
Well, no, I think the HCC 39 was primarily to remove the culvert was the intent of that application, and to do some minor improvements to Leonard Street.
So
That would be.
So it would be 33 that would be voting on? That's why it's so confusing. I think at some point the commission has to know what they're voting on and what they're not. And it's unclear at this point.
Through the chair.
Yep.
It seems like we could clearly vote on the lot. It's lot 1A, 2A, and 3A. And then we just take these out of order. And then it sounds to me like the applicant will make his decision on whether to continue or ask for a vote on the other ones, depending on the results of those. Is that what I'm hearing?
yeah, we just have to make
Probably
sure
correct.
that all the work, so just hypothetically, if the 3 lots are approved, we just need to make sure that the project work that's being approved for Leonard Street is covered under the application that remains, and it's not carried into any of the 2 filings that are being withdrawn, right,
Correct.
Don?
Right.
So why don't, Kerry, that's a good point. Why don't we just start chipping away at the block here? Then we can take a look at the Leonard Street filing. So the 3 house lots are all under the bylaw, so it's not under the Wetland Protection Act. So if I get a motion to approve lot 1A under the bylaw to close
So
the
moved,
meeting.
it's Jim.
May we see the map again, just so I know which lot is which as I'm voting?
It's the one all the way to the right.
So I'll
So
make a
Jeff,
motion.
I'll make
to-
that motion.
Yeah, right. Or I'll second.
And I'll do the roll call for all in favor. So Kerry,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed, Mr. Harrow.
Take a moment sometimes.
Unmute myself. There we go. Okay, this is Ed, and for lot 1A, my vote is no.
Janine,
No.
Ted,
No.
and Jeff is a yes. Okay, you all set, Anna?
That's, as far as I can tell, that's 6 people voting,
It's a
3,
tie.
4. It's a tie, so that would be, not a majority.
That's a
So
denial.
It would be, yeah, the motion didn't pass.
Right. Okay,
This is Jim.
so
Who didn't vote?
Melissa had to drop off.
She's no longer on the call?
No,
Is she coming back?
no.
Should be at the next meeting.
She will be at the next
Should we ask
meeting,
the
yes.
applicant if he would like to?
Well, I'm gonna ask that we continue the meeting then.
Who made that? I think it was,
Jim.
Jim, could you make a motion to withdraw your, motion?
Yep. Well, I make a motion to withdraw the vote? Or the
No,
original
your motion. Then someone else would second it.
Oh, I see.
Everyone,
Okay.
if it
So I,
passed, you would remove that,
Yep.
that vote that everyone just took.
okay, so I make a motion to remove my original motion.
I'll second. Janine.
Okay, and we'll do a roll call, so this reneges on the, I don't know, withdraws the last motion. So Carrie,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Is that Ed or Ted?
Ed,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
and Jeff's and I. Okay, so we'll continue these out till June 6th, Mr. Petrosi?
Yes, thank you.
Through the
Okay,
chair?
yep,
And if he does get any more information through the fire chief on the width of the driveway, it would be nice.
that would be a good recommendation, yes. Okay.
Right, I'll try to do that.
So we'll
Okay.
continue these out to, it's actually June 9th. I'm sorry, Mr. Petrosi, June 9th.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
And Lou, could you send an email?
I will.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Right. Okay, Don, so we're gonna continue out, just for the record here, we're gonna continue out for Mr. Petrosi, HCC 39, 33, 35, 36, 37, 38, and RDA 2020-3.
All right.
And let me know when you're ready, Don. I'll move on to the next application.
Yeah, I was just gonna I've got a draft going. I just wanted to see how much time we've got for that. God, I hate when that thing comes up.
It's 8:30, so we got like half an hour.
All right, hold on. Just want to go into, look at the agendas. Give me 1 second. Just want to see if you got enough time to push all that out there. Agendas, where are you? Ah, rats, wrong one. Come on, my drive. Agendas.
Well, it's Jim. We got to make time, right?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys are all set for the 9th, what you just continued. I don't have the white book. I don't have the white book in front of me that we usually have for penciling in what just got continued. Yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 applications ahead of it. So we'll just put all that at the end of the night. So sorry about that. So you look okay for the 9th.
Okay, yeah, because we have Maspinock Woods, Nation, Keeley, and DeWolf.
Yeah, the new one. Yep. exactly. And
All
then
the
we had
new
a,
ones,
we had a
right?
continuation.
And then we have Franklin Road that's continued out to that night.
Let's see,
Franklin
yeah.
Road Solar.
Yeah, we got 1702, 1704, 1703. We got the Anarad for 28 lumber, and we got 1694 Franklin Road solar
Yeah, okay.
on.
I think we should be good though.
Yep. I'll put Mr. Petrosi after Franklin Road.
Okay.
And then moving on, I think you've got
Yep.
Harding.
Harding, 70 Spring Street. This is a continuation of a notice of intent. And I think we have Mr. Bemis on the line.
I hope he's there.
I'm here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry I've missed you the previous meeting.
No worries. Okay, you want to just give us an overview here, Mr. Bemis, of where we stand?
Yeah, Dawn, are you going to bring up the latest?
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Okay, very good. Thank you. As an overview, I met Matt out at the site. We reviewed wetland line, and then we reviewed discussing alternatives analysis for the access, and determined that we could bring a driveway in on the right side of the lot, actually over land of Mr. Harding's primary residence, and then cross the wetlands where there's an existing crossing up about 3/4 of the depth of the lot. We have completed a full design and submitted it to you for consideration as the plan versus retaining the previous one. So I would say that the alternative is the current program that we would go forward with. I did
Yeah, just
review
hold on.
this.
Mr. Bemis, excuse me one second. Don, do you have the plan that you can bring up for us?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I had it at my ready. I'm downloading it now, so I'd be able to.
Okay,
show all
no
the
worries.
documents.
Yeah, thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Okay,
It
Mr.
was,
Bemis. go
I
ahead.
was on the second page. I missed the download. My bad. Working on it as we speak.
You can continue, Mr. Bemis, sorry.
Okay, so generally the house maintained its position. It's 100% out of the resource buffers. The soil absorption system is still within its position. We pulled back some of the grading work at your encouragement, so that we observed your maximum or minimum setback requirements, if you will. In some cases, a retaining wall would be used, the masonry, using probably existing stones from the site to achieve that. Thank you, Don. So as you zoomed in there, you can see where the crossing is. There's an existing culvert that's there. And so back when this was farmland, they were crossing this resource area at that location. So we would take that degraded area, cross at that position, impact the wetlands 180 square feet. So it's as minimal as I can possibly get with any crossing on this property. And then we would use a similar culvert system. We're anticipating a minimum driveway width of 14 feet. I have discussed this project with Tom Poirier, but I know the fire chief is ultimate reviewing authority for this, and I've not had any discussions with the fire chief yet. But we're anticipating that this would be a program that could work. We've shown that we can bring the fire apparatus to the site. As part of this, we do have a wetland replication area, what we thought to do, because there's this degraded area along Spring Street, which is invasive knotweed. Not the easiest plant to try to eradicate, but seemed like it was a worthy task because of how degraded that area is. And taken as a whole, I'd say this is a much better plan than what we had previously presented to you. Mr. Harding, on the other hand, came back with another suggestion to us just the other day, where he would prefer to come across the back of his primary residence. And Dawn, I did send you an email with this, but I'm not sure whether you were able to get it. I do have it on my screen if I'm allowed to share. I can show it to you, but if you'd like, I can just describe as well, which is coming to the right side of the barn that is located to the furthest right of the sheet. You probably are getting cut off because of everybody's video stream. But it would go across the back. And in this instance, our activities would be mostly outside of the resource area with the exception of the crossing location. And it would come and hook straight into the building site. The issue that
So that ingress would be farther north on Spring Street?
yes, it would. Yes.
Okay.
So site distance is improved. There's a lot of good things that come with it. The one concern that I have is that the building department may not view that I am egressing through my frontage to gain thank you, Don, to gain access to my property. And so I have a little bit of concern about that, but I would think from an emergency egress perspective, it would work, other than the housing numbers being a bit out of sequence, because the house would be further to the left of what, 68, I believe. I think the numbers are 68 and 70. I'm just trying to recall it. Both of these are saying 7. But this is the suggestion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I
So
like
we
that.
have
I like that
alternative.
better. So is this the first time, Matt, and Don, you're seeing this as well?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. My sense is I think this is a better approach because of the, the decrease in buffer zone impact. But we need to take a little bit of a harder look at it, obviously. Where's the site locus on this, Don? I'm trying to think of where on Spring Street this property is.
Jeff, it's a white colonial, just before you get to the McDonough property. And it's just after Ralph Road.
Oh, okay. So it's far, I'm thinking, yeah. So it's right after Ralph Road, so it's farther up. It's closer to Wood Street.
Closer to
than
Castle
Pond
Hill.
Street, right?
Castle Hill, that's correct. Closer to
Castle Hill, okay, yeah, all right, got it.
It's a very old home. This home actually dates back to almost a couple hundred years.
Yeah, okay, I know which one you're talking about now. Okay. All right, thanks, Don. All right, so Mr. Bemis, I mean, what's your, what is the sign owner leaning towards? The one that's been already.
Mr. Harding felt as though his privacy to his property would benefit from it coming across the back, which it seems a little bit unrealistic, but I think what we can do is put a buffer zone there or plantings. So at the end of the day, the environment, I think, can benefit greatly from this approach. I need to convince the building department that I still comply with my minimum zoning requirements, and that the fire department doesn't have a problem with the sequence of access for life safety issues, which I think can all be overcome by good identification along the street. And possibly we just use a lower number because the access to the driveway would occur before the house number.
Right, yeah, all right, so I think that if that's the case, then if that's what's being considered, then we should probably just, wait to hear back from you on whether you get that approval or not. Sounds like if you do, then he's gonna move forward with that.
Agreed. I'm not trying to do much more than just present this to you this evening, so.
Okay. Hey, Anna, Melissa just came back into the meeting for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so why don't we just continue this out to the 9th, Mr. Bemis? Is that, oh wait,
That's
actually.
acceptable, but Dawn, is that okay for you with your
It's not, it's
agenda?
actually not gonna be okay. It's gonna have to be the 23rd, unfortunately.
All right, but can you put me on towards the beginning versus the end?
Yeah, 'cause I think right now I haven't even started the 23rd, but yeah, you would be on the end for the 9th, but if you push out, you'd be higher on the 23rd.
Thanks. I will take that, and it'll give me time to get everything done, and I can get the details back to you and Matt well in advance of the meeting. So
So we'll continue it to the 23rd?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Peter, could you send me an email confirming that?
I'll do it, Don, before I shut my computer off.
Thank you.
You got it. Take care, Don. Thank you.
Okay, does that make sense, everyone?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Bemis.
Yes, have a good evening.
You too. All right. So I guess we can just kind of go through the work session items, Don. When you're ready.
Yeah. So we had a couple of documents that you guys worked on.
Hayes, 16 Downey Street, the order of conditions, and REC Hopkinton, the amended order of conditions.
Right. And the amended order, we did get comments. It was subject to getting
David's review.
yeah, and he did Beta sent back some comments, and but also I thought we were waiting on revised plans. Yeah, we needed a final revision plan also for 1701, and then 1648. They said they were going to send us final plans, which they did. They were huge. I was working on downloading today. They gave me a link, and I was having problems with it, so I didn't have a chance to interact with them. But on that order as well, I'll need to have the final dates. So right now, these are definitely both drafts. So if you guys wanted to, I don't know if you wanted to vote to sign, subject to me getting the final information, you know?
Yeah,
on,
I think that, so just to summarize, Beta, we did get the letter from Beta. They were okay with they did their review, everything checked out for them. So I think we're good there. So it's just a matter of getting the updated plans done.
Right.
Okay.
They made note about some details on the Versalock wall. The location wasn't provided, but I think they were okay with that.
Right. Yeah, okay, so if I can get a motion we'll approve it, subject to receipt of the updated plans and Don's approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second, please?
Second.
Second from Jim. We'll do the roll call. Melissa? Carrie?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Ted?
Aye.
And it's an aye for Jeff. Okay. All right, then new applications. We have Maspinock Woods, notice of intent, Nation, notice of intent, Keely, notice of intent, DeWolf, abbreviated resource area delineation. We mentioned those last week.
Those will be on for the 9th.
So those have been advertised for the 9th. The two that are advertised or that haven't been advertised to date are Bryant, 0 Downey Place, a notice of intent, and Boombaka, 17 West Elm. That's an RDA for the record.
Maybe we could, like last time, maybe we could talk offline to see how the agenda's shaping up and if the leadership team, is looking for the end of June on those.
Okay.
We can do that offline.
There's no pressing, they're not giving you pressure to move them along. Are they done?
I haven't heard anything yet. No. Obviously, Vumbaka was 17 West Elm was a septic repair, and they had asked for a push, and I was open to issuing an emergency certificate based on Board of Health, declaring an emergency, but I haven't heard anything on that front. So I'm just letting it go. It's normal course.
Right. Okay. Okay. That sounds good. So let's move on to Lucier, 40 Valentine Circle.
Sure. We were anticipating Goddard Consulting is anyone in the queue?
Yep, I'm here, Dan Wells.
Beautiful.
Yep.
How you doing, Mr. Wells?
Good, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Don, do you want to start with a background, or do you want me to? I'll be brief. Essentially, the commission issued an order of conditions in February of 2014. It involved some historical BVW fill for a stream crossing. It required some replication, and the replication was started in 2015, but it was not completed. And when we finally got a chance to have a kind of an as-built performed, it was apparent that the replication area was smaller than initially thought. So there was a deficiency of about 1,600 square feet. So I met Matt Verrill up there earlier this spring, I guess it was winter. And so I've come up with a new proposal to kind of bring this into compliance. So we would finish off. So I don't know, Don, what you're able to show up on there on the screen. Well, there's two separate replication areas. The one which was started, it was graded and the appropriate soil was brought in, but it was never planted. So that area, for that portion, it's 3,200 square feet. I'm proposing, there's some buckthorn has come in the meantime. So remove the buckthorn and then plant the appropriate trees, shrubs, and ferns. I did check on the soil. It's still, suitable hydric soil conditions. The other area is, this area to the right, the 1,600 square foot area on the right-hand side of that figure. This project was initially permitted back in 1991 or so. And so that area was designated as a wet replication area, but it wasn't, currently it's not, it doesn't have hydric soils and hydrology. So, and there are invasive species. So the plan is to take that area, remove the bad stuff, and bring in, a suitable mix of native shrubs and trees and ferns, similar to the left side, the 3,200 square foot area. So this proposal, Mr. Lucier, he's talked to, a landscaper. He's ready to get going on this. It's a couple years behind, obviously. So if the commission would consider approving this plan, I don't know if technically we need permission to do this under a friendly enforcement action. I don't know if that's something we need to discuss, but certainly part of the plan would be supervision by myself or someone similar. Typical, Goddard Consulting does numerous projects like this in Hopkinton, so you're familiar with our procedures. So
yeah.
We'd be certainly supervising all of it and submitting reports to the commission for 2 years.
Yeah. So Matt, did you get a chance to take a look at this? And
Yeah, so as Dave mentioned, I met him on the site and we had kind of chatted about what's out there now and the best approach to get it to where it needs to be to, aiming towards a certificate of compliance. And Dan had sent me a draft version of the plan that's sort of been submitted in final form, and I had given him a few comments on that. So the plan's before you now, I'm fine with. I have no issues with, and I guess it's really just kind of comes down to a matter of how you guys approve it, whether it's through, as Dan said, a friendly enforcement, or the only other option would be filing a new notice of intent because the old order is expired at this point. And I think where they're working in wetlands, I think there should be something on file as far as sort of formal permission.
yeah, I'm amenable to the friendly enforcement. I think that's kind of, I appreciate the developer coming forward and doing what's right here. So I want to try to make this, and if he's ready to go, I want to try to make it as efficient as possible to get this done. Particularly if Goddard's going to be overseeing it, I feel comfortable there, with Matt's uh, periodic oversight. So I think, I'm inclined to do it as a friendly enforcement order, if that sounds okay to the other commission members.
Is it? It's fine with
Jim.
me.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yep. Go ahead, Matt.
So I think friendly enforcement is fine, but I think where this involved wetland mitigation that was required in the original permit, I think potentially having sort of a deadline in there so that, yes, it's, it's not, you're not requiring a new notice of intent, so you're kind of cutting them a break, but I think having a sort of an end date on this, just so that they do, it sounds like they have every intention of moving forward, but we're also in a little bit of a weird world right now that we didn't expect. So I think saying that, there is an expectation for this work to occur in whatever time frame you choose to put on it, I think would be of value.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'm thinking 6 months. Does that sound reasonable to you, Matt, Don?
Yeah, I think just by the end of 2020.
By the end of 2020, Dan?
Yeah, certainly we try to get it in right away, but if we have to wait till the fall planting season, then that's, that puts us into September-ish. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you can get stuff in now and then you can assess over the summer and then look at the fall if you have to amend.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Okay. All right. So if I can get a motion to approve a friendly enforcement order with a deadline of completing the work by the end of 2020, please. So Ted made the motion and a second.
Second, Janine.
Second by Janine. And let's do the roll call. So Melissa,
Aye.
Carrie,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
and Jeff's an aye. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wells.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. One more item. I just wanted to update you. There was a conservation restriction as part of this project that was required. And just before this meeting started, Mr. Lucier sent me word that the state executive office has approved the CR. So it's gonna be emailed to Dawn for the commission signature shortly. So.
Okay, great.
Yep.
That's great news. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Great. Have a good night. Thank you.
You too. Okay, take care. Okay. And we have the review of the cost of the turtle signs, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Harrow to give us an update on what his...
I'm telling you, I'm going to go play in traffic. So the signs are approximately $49. I got the sense from Mr. Westerling that the DPW would be happy to pay for some. I told Mr. Westerling I would be happy to pay for two. And at our last Concom meeting, I think there was some discussion about Concom having some money that they could contribute to this. At this point, with input from a variety of people, I have a need for 6 pairs of signs. South Mill Street, Fruit Street, Exchange Street, Lake Shore, Huckleberry, and Front Street.
Okay, so as I recall, the DPW is willing to pay for the installation and the posts, and we got to come up with the funding for the actual signs.
Well, in the beginning, I thought they were going to do some of the signs too, so I'm a little confused. But yes, definitely, they're going to do the posts and stick them in the ground.
Right, and the signs I think were $28 each, right?
Well, what the sign that what John quoted was $48.70.
Oh, 48. That's right. I'm sorry. Okay. I think Don, so we have money in our budget, right?
No, to me, I think you'd be looking at that the conservation fund.
Right.
It goes all the way back to like the 60s. And
Yeah.
it's through the treasurer. So, but we've used it for, kind of stewardship in the past, and this would be stewardship. You can't use your your Wetlands Protection Act or your
Right,
53, the NOI money. No, but
Yeah,
there
because
is,
I think we used funds most recently for the Elmwood Farm, right? So that came out of our budget. I'm pretty sure.
maybe for the sign that went out. Yeah.
Yeah, for the
Might have.
sign at the trailhead there.
Yeah,
Or
it might
parking
have.
lot.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I'd have to look through, because I know we've also applied for CPA money too on signage, but I don't think they do signs anymore. So that's why we're at this point. But
Right.
I mean, that's what Ed had said. He was going to hopefully ask for, DPW to see what they could kick in. And that was nice. They were going to kick in the signs and all the hardware and the labor, so I think it's a pretty good deal if we just have to buy some signs and then give them to DPW to install. Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I agree. Does that make sense to everyone? So it'd come out of our CPA budget. We're probably looking at $600 or $700. It sounds like.
Yeah, not the CPA. The commission has their own conservation fund.
The conservation
Money's
fund. I'm sorry.
collected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the WPA, the conservation fund.
No, yeah. It's just it was basically in the 60s to give the town, the Concom, the ability to buy land, and now land's crazy, so you're not going to buy any land with it, but you could still do stewardship, because it was sort of broad written, and it would just you'd go to the treasurer and go, we'd like to buy 6 signs worth $300, for turtle crossing, and can we take it out of the fund? She'd look at it, he or she, I don't even know what we got now, would look at it and say, yeah, that's applicable under this fund, and sure, we'll release the money to you.
Do we know how much is in there?
I'm sorry?
Do we know how much is in the fund?
Yeah, it's like 20 or 30 grand, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
there's enough.
like around, I think it's around 10 or something, but I could
10
look
now?
through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and to clarify, we're talking 12 signs, 6 sites, 12 signs.
Oh, okay.
So
double
$600
that, so
approximately.
$600?
Well, $100 a pair.
Yeah. So if I do my math, $600.
That's what I came up
Close
with.
enough.
I'm looking at
Approximately.
600.
So, hey, Ed, can you do Don a favor and just get a quotation from the vendor
Sure.
for the total amount with the tax? Because we need
No,
to
yeah,
submit-
need it. Ed.
Yep.
Ed, I'll send you the town's tax free. There's a form.
Yeah.
Department of Revenue or something. I'll send that to you. So you just tell them, hey, it's a town thing and we're tax exempt. So.
And then we just got to go through the motions of getting it approved by the town and, the funding allocated, and then
Yeah.
we can order it and they can just invoice the town directly.
Okay.
And we can have them shipped right to the DPW.
Yeah. So Ed, don't buy them. Get a purchase order, tell us what they want. They'll say, okay, if you give us this amount of money, we will give you these 12 signs. That's
Right.
what we need.
Right.
Because then we'll go that paperwork and we'll pass to the treasurer and we'll get the money.
Okay.
Beauty.
As
All right.
Limpin' Lizard would say, done and done.
All right. Thank you for doing that, Ed.
Oh, thank you.
So Don, did you have something else here?
No, I think we covered it. Oh, when he signed off, he mentioned the Concom would have to sign the CR. I was just scrolling through it. It'll be the select board that's going to sign. I don't see
Okay,
us.
good. Yeah.
I don't see us signing it.
Okay.
This is what got kicked. This is the draft that got kicked back from the state with their comments. So
We got to get that signed before the next election. Otherwise, we have to change the signatories on it, potentially,
okay.
depending on who gets elected.
All right.
I think
that'll just be a typo. I don't think they'll have a problem with that. We just got to.
Yeah.
If
Right.
anything happens, we'll just change the names.
Yeah, I think John is the only one who's up for re-election anyways.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right. So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Janine.
So Janine made the motion in a second.
Second, this is Ed.
Ed, and we'll do the roll call. Melissa,
Aye.
Jerry,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Ted. You guys listen to this? Who is it? All right, so I guess we'll adjourn the meeting.
Is that
All in
Perry
favor? That
Just one thing,
song, I
is
don't know if you guys
HCM?
watched the video, but it sticks in your head for like days after you hear it.
Is that a Perry
Yeah.
Grip song?
What is it?
Is
Yeah.
HCM?
Yeah,
is
it's
HCM on the
Perry
line?
Grip.
My kids those songs.
Jeff.
There's so many of them. Do you have
Jeff.
Raining Tacos?
Yeah, yeah.
Jeff,
The
I did
hamster on
watch
a
that.
piano.
Jeff, I
Oh,
did
yeah.
watch that video. It did not stick in my mind for more than 30 seconds. I'm not sure what that means.
Ah, interesting. All right.
Jeff, do you know if
Yeah.
HCAM was involved in this at all?
You know what? I have a sign up here in the left. So Mike never logged in,
Oh,
and I have
Wasn't
a
until Mike this week.
I can email him and because sometimes he's asked for a download of what we had from Zoom. So hopefully he can post it, you know?
yeah, because right on my
I think
screen
Bob
it
was
says
on earlier.
recording paused.
I think Bob was on earlier.
Oh, good, from HCAM?
Yeah, it wasn't
Oh,
going to
okay.
be Mike this week.
Great. As long as they're aware of it, you know, because I thought they were tracking us.
Yeah, I saw him at the very beginning of the meeting on.
Okay,
Beautiful.
maybe they did
Beautiful.
do it then. Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
All
All
right.
right.
you
See
later.
you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay safe.
Bye.